Vernon W. Petersen. I was living in New Haven, Connecticut when I went in service. My hometown was New Haven, Connecticut. I was 22 years old. I started out training in the Connecticut National Guard Medical Corps. And from there I went to the medical from the Army Corps. And we went to Kecoughtan, Virginia. I was there a short time and they sent me up to WWII Hospital to learn how to do first aid, clean wounds that the men would be getting on the field. And wasn't in love with that type of work, so I decided to take a shot at getting out, and the only place I could go was the Air Force. That was the only one that had more priority than the Medical Corps. So I applied to the Air Force, and I went in the Air Force and took my training there at Ellington Field, just outside of Houston, Texas. And from there I went to Childress for Bombardier School, then down to Hollingen for Gunnery School, then back up to Childress and was commissioned. And I was sent to the big field and went through the training for going overseas. And a week before we finished up, I came down with a bad cold, and the doctor said I had to have my tonsils out. So he pulled me into called me into the hospital, and I was supposed to be in there for 3 days and home, back to my crew. However, after he took my tonsils out, one of the nurses came in and whispered in his ear, "You've just become the father of twins. You want to go home?" And he said, "Yes." That left me in the Medical Corps, in the hospital. He didn't come back for 15 days, and I couldn't leave the hospital for 15 days. So naturally, I got bumped off my crew. And when I finally got back into the field of training, I was sent to Colorado, Pueblo Air Force Base, where I tied in with BIvens, the pilot, and Holcomb, the co-pilot, and Lowry was the navigator, and I was the bombardier. And I was also trained for ground reckoning navigation. We went overseas on the West Point, leaving from Virginia, Newport News. And we went into Naples. We were 5 days on the high seas. And when we got to Naples, we were there a few days and we were assigned to the 15th Air Force and going to Grottaglia. And when we got to Grottaglia, the crew was intact, and we started flying more training trips, cruises, missions. And finally, we took off, I think it was about the first week of January. We flew our first combat mission. And we had I got my flights in to go home, and I went home. And it was 3 missions after I was there, after I flew out. And on the third from last mission, it was the first mission to free Clark's 15th Army, 5th Army, whatever it was, out of Italy, because they were tied up in the mountains. And I flew that mission, and I flew out on that mission. However, the officer in charge of the squadron told me that he had received a call from 15th Air Force headquarters and they wanted me to fly another mission up there on the ground forces. And about 5 o'clock in the morning, they woke me up and they said they changed their mind. I was released. I was going home. So I came home.
And when was that?
I arrived back in the States on BJ Day, August 20th.
And can you say what your
First lieutenant, promoted to first lieutenant. Position was Bombardier. Squadron was the 716th. And the crew was BIvens for pilot, and that was William BIvens from West Virginia, because there was also another BIvens in the squadron. He came over with us on the boat. His name was spelled B-E-V-A-N-S, I believe. And ours was B-E-V-I-N-S. And the other BIvens went into the ground, crashed, I think it was in February, and they lost 3 or 4 of the crew members, and the others survived but were pretty badly injured. We were very fortunate as a crew. We believed that we better off to do our work and not worry about it, griping or complaining. And we knew that we all depended on each other. Each man was very important in the crew, wherever he was stationed on that plane. He had a job to do, and we wanted him to do it. The Shirley Jean was used quite frequently by us for about 5 or 6 missions. And the very last one, I believe, for the Shirley Jean was when we came back on a mission that we were. Some people said we had 1,000 holes in the plane. I don't know. I didn't count them. And was just about it. Duration of service, when I got back, I was probably within 10 people of being discharged. Yeah, 10. And I'd already signed up to go to college. And a lieutenant come over to me and he says, "You're just the man we're looking for. You've been flying in Yugoslavia area, and Trieste is in trouble right now with the government, and we're going to hold you and a couple other crews on standby in case we have to send you over there in a hurry." And we stayed there for a year. That was in Midland, Texas.
Did you go back then? Were you called back? When you were in Texas, were you called from Texas and then you did go fly again?
Oh, no, we flew, but we flew in Texas only. We never had to go over to, Trieste, where they were worried about things. But we had to go fly about twice a week. We had to go up and practice. And on the other days, we had other duties on the base. And that was our year. When it was up, they discharged us. They separated us.
And what did you do then?
Went home, went to school, back to Wales, went back to college, and that was it.
There was a story about the Pope, something about the Pope?
Oh, yes, we had a audience with the Pope in Rome on our second vacation, week off. First week off we went to the Isle of Capri, and on the second one they sent us up to Rome, and we were fortunate enough for our crew to get an audience with Pope Pius, and we went in and we enjoyed ourselves. Give us a look, smiled. I happened to not wittingly know about it, but I guess he knew I wasn't Catholic. And the pilot wasn't Catholic.
It was still okay, though.
Yeah, it was okay. We bought a couple of the beads. Rosaries. And I had an aunt and uncle that were, my uncle turned Catholic. My aunt was Irish and she was Catholic. So I brought them each a set of those and brought them home to them. And of course, then there was a couple of times when we had other problems that aren't so good. While I was at Pueblo, Colorado, we ran into an incident where one of the crews flying out on takeoff went into the ground and everyone was killed, 10 men on board, and the lieutenant was a Lieutenant Adams, a pilot, and he was well, I believe his father was a West Point man, I'm not sure, but he was General Adams. And the captain went over my papers and he saw that I had been in the Army and on the ground forces and knew that I had a little bit more experience, so he decided to send me to Washington, Pennsylvania to have him buried, and that I would handle that properly, which I did. And I got back to Chicago and they bumped me off the train. I no longer had credentials that had priority over anybody. I stayed in the La Salle Hotel something like 7 or 8 days, going out in the evening, checking back in during the day with military people, wondering where my papers were. And I almost lost my crew again. But they got me back just about 3 days before we broke camp from Pueblo to go to Kansas, Topeka, Kansas, where we went to for debarkation. No, not for debarkation, for classification of where we were going to have to go. I guess that was the point where they knew we were going to Italy. And then they sent us to Newport News, where we were overseas on the West Point. That was a luxury passenger ship at that time. So I'd say we went over in 5 days, which was pretty good.
Can you talk a little bit about the B-24?
B-24, as far as I'm concerned, was a good airplane. It brought me back on every mission, on every training mission. I have no complaints with it. I've been in it when we only had 2 engines to come home with, but that was here in the States. It wasn't in combat. We lost 2 engines right here in the States when we were on a mission, training mission. No complaints with the airplane.
How do you think it compared to the B-17?
Well, it did the same work the B-17 did, and whether they like it or not, it stood up. And I think it had a lot of bad targets in Germany, Romania, because that's where you had your Palesti, and then you had the Linz run, which had a lot of munition, tanks, and different things that the Germans manufactured for the armies. Oh. And then there was a moose bomb. I was there a few times. That was another bad one. But as long as you come home, as I said, there was one flight, they claimed we had 1,000 holes in the plane. And the only one that was hurt was the tail gunner. He had a piece of his heel shot off, shot up badly. They had to amputate part of it. And other than that, that was the only problem we had, except for my pride. I went over there and was always willing to go up and deliver whatever we could. And I always said I'd give them nothing. But on one mission, they took my back pocket. Never broke the skin of my body, but they did take the back pocket out of my flying pants. I had to get a new pair of pants that night. That's it. Not much more I do it.
That's good.
On the Sperry, you had to be very careful because it was a very much greater response in rapidity in doing this work. And you could mess up a formation if you cranked it too quickly. You know, you do that to set your course. And if you just turn that quick, you had to turn it nice and slow. And Norden was a little different. You had the gyro, and all you had to do was cage that and couldn't do nothing. But with the Sperry, it was different. You had to turn the pilot off to correct it. Where if you took the Norden and put the knob down on it, you shut it off.
The duties of the Bombardier.
The duties of a bombardier?
Mm-hmm.
Check the bombs when they're put on the plane, to check the cables, to go to the release, because there's 5 brackets on each side of the bomb bay, and those 5 brackets have to work in unity. And they have a control up on the panel next to your sight, and you operate that and you work on that yourself. And it's your responsibility to put it on and then to engage everything. And of course you can always dump the bombs anytime from that station. It has an emergency release if the plane happened to get hit or something. and then you still had electricity. You could just hit that down, and all the bombs would be gone. And then you wouldn't have to worry about a landing with your bomb bays open or something, and one of them falling out and hit the ground and blow you up in the plane too. And of course you were the one who handled the armor on board. You had the 6 enlisted men who were the gunners. You looked after them as far as gun work was concerned. Of course, your engineer was the pilot's right-hand man and a co-pilot. And the radio operator was the navigator's right-hand man. So all you did as far as your work with the enlisted men was to make sure that they were up to date on their own ability to do whatever was brought out by headquarters or Air Force headquarters. And they'd give you a circular and say they want this done, that done, or the other thing done. And of course, then they always wanted you to have a few tracers in that 50 caliber. You see that you have one of them in there on the table. 50 caliber is about that long. 50 caliber. And that about every 7 or 8, they'll have what they call a tracer in there. And when that goes through the air, you see where it's going. It has like a light on it. What would be a light. In other words, it keeps glaring, and you can see where it goes. And if you're underneath, you got to raise your gun. If you're over the top, you got to lower your gun. If you're out in front, you got to bring it back a little bit. You're leading them too much. And the same from the tail. But they were all trained, gunnery school, the same as we were, the Bombardiers were. And they had their job, they knew they had a job. And a lot of the other enlisted men were jealous of the Air Force enlisted men because there wasn't that rough handling of the enlisted men in the Air Force like there was on the ground with some of their forces. Because you had to remember one thing, you have 10 of you on board, 6 of them are enlisted men, 4 of them are officers. They've all got a station. Of course, the most important one is the pilot. And then after that, everyone's got to do their work. He has an assistant, co-pilot, navigators, got an assistant and radio operator, and the pilot's also got the engineer. He's the one who he relies on to go out and take care of the problems that he's having with his instruments or his engines. He gets an indication when he's flying. He's been trained to know what that is. Whatever it is, he sends that engineer out to do it, and he knows he's got a good one when he sees it's corrected quickly. And that's what makes the crew good. Everybody doing their work. And nobody fighting.
Did you have was your crew a cohesive crew and you stuck together well?
Oh, well, the 4 officers did, but our navigator, he was trying to fly home because his wife was going to have a little girl, and he had about 2 months to get back in line for getting back home. And I think that he had almost 3 months, and he just made it by about a week and a half. He got back. But he was flying with anyone who would take him to get his missions in. And the co-pilot, the pilot, the co-pilot, myself, we were together. We always went to rest camp together and everything else. He didn't want to go to rest camp. He just wanted to fly and get his missions in. And I think he got out of there in first week of March. And I got out of there about the 23rd or 4th of April. So I was almost 7 weeks behind him, maybe 8.
And how many missions did you fly?
50. I flew all doubles, all long missions. See, when you go, Mary can tell you, she has on the slips, that when you fly these long flights, you get credit for doubles. And all of mine were doubles. I was fortunate in that respect.
Was it the length of the flight, or was it the toughness of the target?
Oh, no, it was the distance.
The distance
In other
you had
words,
to
you
fly?
were out over enemy lines much longer.
Okay.
Because, like, if you were going to Germany and you went to Linz, you were out over Romania and that whole area. Germany, another small Slovak, something like that, was in there. There's quite a few of them. They were probably 400-mile trips one way. So it was 800 miles for the round trip. That's a little bit heavy for those airplanes, but I guess they did do it. Because I know when they flew into Russia, and I didn't go on that trip, but that was another one that caused me a lot of trouble. A fellow I played a lot of ping pong with, he was my partner. He went on that trip and he got killed. He never got back. And oddly enough, he was from my hometown in New Rochelle. When they picked his stuff up, one of the officers said, "You're from New Rochelle too?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "You take this back to his family. We'll know it gets back there." So that was a bad session. We were up with his fiancée and his mother, and we had quite a talk with them.
Did they know before you came to them with his things?
Oh, well, they knew that he was gone.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, that flight to Russia was in March, I believe. So it was a good 6 weeks before. Might have even been last week of February. 45. But Mrs. McDowell knew that they were. That's something I wanted to know too, is if they have that flight and the history of that flight.
Was it a 449th?
449, yeah, 716 Squadron.
Okay.
The whole group was on it, but they went into Russia, landed after they hit the target, and then they came back the next day. And when they took off from Russia and come over to German lines, when they got shot down.
Did anyone survive? Were there POWs or no one survived?
Not that I know of. That's what I've often wondered. I meant to ask this fellow. I'm going to ask him this time while I'm up here.
What's your experience? How are you enjoying the reunions? Have you been to many? And
Oh, we didn't give word. My son, I think, was the one who found it on the what was on the,
Internet,
huh?
on the internet, the 449 reunions.
And he asked me about it. We decided we'd go to Washington, because it was coming up in what, about 6 months, 7 months? We went, we had a good time, and then we've been to all of them since. We were out to Nevada, and then we came here. God knows where we're going, where they're going on the next one. What, 18 months from now?
Mm-hmm.
So, that's supposed to be out west. What do you think of this place?
Well, we just got here.
Yeah, but,
So, have you been here long? Have you,
Just got here today.
yeah.
I
We
think
haven't
you
even
came
ch-
in